So, you're after a designer diesel super mini, something with all the trappings of a premium car but in a small package and that doesn't cost a fortune to run. The Mini Cooper D is likely to be very high on your shortlist, as are the 1.6 diesel Citroën DS3 and Audi A1. Sadly, we're going to relegate the DS3 right from the off. It just doesn't have quite the same perceived cabin quality and solidity as the Mini and the Audi. It's also not quite as fun to drive, and surprisingly, it will cost you more over 3 years to run than either of the other two. The Audi A1 is much closer to the Mini in terms of its dynamics, perceived quality and its running costs. So, which one's best? Well, the good news is that over the years and all the new models, the Mini has really retained its playful handling. The steering is quite heavy and responds quickly, so it gives it that trademark nimble feeling around town, which is great. If you option up the sport setting, then it's a bit unnecessarily heavy, but even so, it's just great fun, really. The ride is very good too. It's quite smooth. It's a little bit choppy around town, but it does smooth over big bumps quite well, so you don't get that really jarring feel. You can add very well priced adaptive dampers, which we would say is worth it because it does actually make that even a little bit better. Certainly, even with standard suspension, the Mini is the more comfortable of the two cars here. Now, the engine, it's all a bit controversial because a 3-cylinder 1.5 turbo diesel doesn't really sound like something that should be in a car wearing a Cooper badge, but it does really well actually. It's easily the most refined diesel engine in this class. It revs really sweetly, and it's actually usefully faster than the A1 as well. The Audi has just about got the edge over the Mini in terms of its handling. The steering's lighter and it doesn't have the same overt dartiness that the Mini has, but it's got a slightly more organic feel. It weights up really nicely through corners, so it just makes the Audi really easy to drive quickly and smoothly. And having said that, it's also very satisfying to drive at normal road speeds. What really does let the A1 down is its engine noise. Even under moderate acceleration, it's really gruff and noisy, and it's just nowhere near as sweet revving as the Minis. However, on the motorway, the A1 definitely has a bit less wind noise than the Mini, while the Mini has the quieter engine. Both of the cars actually suffer quite a bit of tyre noise on the motorway, so you know it's not going to be big saloon-like refinement if you go on a long journey. The cabin is a real selling point in the Mini. It's got just the sort of theatricality that Mini buyers have come to expect. You get this start-stop switch as standard. You don't get a colour screen, that's the only downside, but you do get this readout here. And if you option it up, you get these really cool ambient lights around the screen, which sort of change with the temperature or driving modes. It's really cool. You can also see the speedo and the rev counter quite easily. The driving seat's quite nice and comfortable. There's loads of headroom. But visibility is a little bit of a problem because these quite chunky forward pillars can cause blind spots at junctions. Neither of these cars is brilliantly equipped, but the Mini is definitely a bit better than the Audi because you do get aircon, Bluetooth, USB input and digital radio all as standard. However, most buyers will also want to add the chili pack, which does give you part leather upholstery, the ambient lighting and the driving modes that I've talked about, climate control, auto lights and wipers, just all those luxuries that people are willing to pay for really. And you are going to have to pay for it because it does cost over £2,000. It is a much more conventional looking cabin in the Audi. There's none of the really quirky design touches. But actually the material quality is probably slightly better in here than it is in the Mini, and you do get some really nice touches like the surrounds to these vents. You also get the colour screen as standard. It is basically the more user-friendly cabin. You can see the dials well, driving position's really nice, and visibility is slightly better. However, equipment is not so good. You have to go for the sport trim that we favour to get Bluetooth and the multifunction steering wheel, and even then you have to pay extra to get a USB or iPhone connection. You can't get digital radio at all, which seems really poor by today's standards. You do get, as I said, the colour screen as standard, and you do get manual air conditioning even in the base car. Also, if you want sat-nav, it's an affordable option on both of these cars. If you're buying the 3-door variants of these cars, then access to the rear seats is, well, you're going to have to be quite flexible to get into either of them really, but there is more room to get into the back of the A1. But when you're back here, the seat backs are quite upright and that makes it quite uncomfortable, even though there's kind of enough head and leg room. The Mini, once you've managed to get in, definitely has more headroom and a tiny bit more legroom than the Audi as well, and its seats are just generally more comfortable. But to be honest, neither of these cars has all that much legroom, even by the standards of the Super Mini class, so adults really are going to feel a bit cramped in the back of either of them. As you'd expect, neither of these cars has got a massive boot, but the Audi's is just a little bit bigger than the Minis. Still, the Mini does counter with better underfloor storage and a variable height boot floor as standard. Both of them, you can fold the seats if you need to. So, essentially, both are perfectly fine for everyday use. And that's about it, really. Both the Audi A1 1.6 TDI and the Mini Cooper D are both really stylish super minis that are cheap to fuel and really good fun on the road. However, it is the Mini Cooper D that edges this test. It has got by far the best engine, and also its lower emissions mean that it's usefully cheaper as a company car. Apart from that, it's just a bit more fun and more comfortable at normal road speeds. For more information, go to whatcar.com and search Mini. And while you're here, click subscribe and have a look at the rest of the videos on our channel.